Hey, Pretty Girl Club. So today I want to talk about how pretty privilege has helped me to get jobs before. So, one disclaimer about pretty privilege is that it only works with men who are attracted to you and women who are not jealous of you. Pretty privilege actually has the opposite effect if you're dealing with men and women who are jealous of you or, people who just, for whatever reason, they don't want to help you. But this video was actually inspired by Exotical Dollhouse. She just passed 600 subscribers, so be sure to follow Exotical Dollhouse here on YouTube. She made a video about how plain Janes want to end pretty privilege, and that was a really good video. So I'm going to kind of talk about how pretty privilege can actually help you and my experiences with it. By the way, I hope more of you guys are starting YouTube channels. Some of the channels that have been popping up on my feed lately are Pinterest Exotical, Iconic Exotica, Step Into the Light, Golden Goddess, Multiracial Movement. Make sure you guys follow them so we can make the algorithm a little bit prettier. But I wanted to talk about pretty privilege because a lot of people, they try to critique this channel and they try to critique this niche because we talk a lot about pretty privilege and the nuances that come with it. So I've noticed that a lot of women, they don't understand pretty privilege outside of the male gaze. And it made me think about when I wanted to transition from working as a finance coordinator into becoming a staff accountant. I actually did utilize both pretty privilege as well as my racial background to get multiple jobs. I didn't necessarily do it on purpose or do it consciously, but looking back, that's what I did. So I'm going to tell the story and hopefully you guys can maybe analyze it. I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate. So I started off working as a finance coordinator. And by the way, I do not have a degree in finance. So I already was starting off underprivileged and underqualified to be an accountant. Some people might say that was delusional of me to think that I could become an accountant without an accounting degree. Well, I did it and I got 2 accounting jobs, but I did have experience though. So that's a side note. I had the experience, I just didn't have the degree. My degree was in something else. I did tell the hiring manager this when I got hired, but my very first job as a staff accountant, I had to do an interview, like a panel interview with me, and then there was a Hispanic guy, a white lady, and the hiring manager, the executive director, was an unambiguous black man. And so he ended up hiring me. And by the way, for those of you who are like, oh, that probably wasn't pretty privilege, you need to watch my Decentering Men series because I talk all the time about how men will seek power positions in the workplace so that he can hire beautiful women to work underneath him. So anyway, the hiring director was an unambiguous black man, and he was the one who had the final say in whether or not I got hired. And so I didn't think it had anything to do with looks or ethnicity. I mean, I kind of did because it was pretty rare to see an unambiguous black man in a director's position. But I ended up getting the job, and this director, he would I won't call it flirting, but he would come up to my cubicle and he would pull up a chair and sit right next to me, inside of the cubicle. So obviously that's not very normal. So I do think that he could have potentially been trying to maybe flirt or maybe at least gain my validation. And then he used to say things like, I look nice or whatever. And then I also found out that he was married to an exotical. He was married to a light-skinned black woman who had long curly hair, just like myself. And so looking back, I was extremely unqualified to be a staff accountant working at this big, huge, major organization. I had a little bit of experience doing accounting stuff, but like I said, I did not have the degree. And it was funny because even one of the ladies that worked there, she tried to basically talk shit about me and say that I didn't have the knowledge to be an accountant there. But I do believe that pretty privilege helped me to get into the door when it came to that particular job because there was nothing special about my background and qualifications. Like I said, I did not even major in finance. I have no finance degree. I had about maybe 2 years of experience doing accounting tasks, but it wasn't enough to where I could work at one of the top 10 biggest companies in my city just based off of 2 years of experience in my 20s. That was obviously not normal. And then when I asked the director, hey, just so you know, I don't know if there's been a mistake or what, but like I don't have a finance degree. I just wanted to remind you, I have a degree in a different field. Like, is that going to be a problem? Or like, did you guys make a mistake at picking me for this job as the accountant? And he was like, oh no, that's totally fine. Like, people switch careers all the time. And, I think that you're going to do great at this job. And then I asked him, I was like, so why did you like pick me out of all of the other people who would have wanted to work here? And he was like, oh, just because you seem very much like you would fit into the culture here. And he was like, you also come off as very enthusiastic, like in the interview. So I've been called enthusiastic multiple times. And I've noticed that usually it's a man saying it, like when I've been hired for jobs. And also, I've noticed that the only difference between me versus other people is that I smile a lot. So, like, just in general, I tend to smile maybe when I'm talking or like in interviews, and I'm just kind of naturally, I guess, extroverted. But if you guys haven't heard the pretty privilege conversation, a lot of people talk about how if you have certain quirks about yourself and you're considered pretty, it will add to your appeal. But if you are not considered pretty, if you're like an extrovert, then it's like considered annoying. So I will say, I definitely think that both my racial background, being black/black adjacent, and also potentially looking like his ex wife or something, and him saying I'm quote unquote enthusiastic and constantly commenting on how I look nice, I do believe that on a subconscious level, he could have wanted to hire me potentially, or at least partially, based on the way that I look and the way that I carry myself. Because you guys know that I always would dress up at work and stuff. But basically, what happened with that director was, so with the whole him sitting next to me and everything, obviously I don't really flirt with guys at work and stuff like that. But I do think that my looks could have played a factor because later on I learned that he had been married multiple times and that he had a history of cheating on his wife with women at work. Obviously, I can't prove this. These were just the rumors in the office. And he actually ended up like getting fired from that executive position. But I do think that my looks played a contributing factor, as well as my background, because of my blackness. I do think that he could relate to me as opposed to the other people. And also in the department that I ended up working in, there were a lot of other like black people. And another time where I do feel like my looks played a role into me getting hired was this was for my second accounting job. So I had quit that first accounting job after 7 months. And once again, I have no finance or accounting degree. I had maybe 3 years of experience at that point, but I had quit the previous job after about 6 or 7 months. And I felt like I probably could get another accounting job. So I ended up interviewing for this one accounting job, and there was a woman and a man interviewing me. So the CFO guy, he was a white guy. He was a millennial, so he was around my age. I could just kind of tell by looking at him. So I ended up getting hired, and the direct manager that like worked with me, she did not like me at all from day one. And later on, I found out that it was actually the guy who wanted me to work there and not her. Like, I found out that she didn't want me to work there. And I also found out that he was the one who offered me more than $10,000 above the minimum, like what I was supposed to be getting paid, I guess, with my experience level. So he started me off at almost the maximum amount for that position. And basically, the female manager, she was like salty about that because she had to work 10 years. By the way, the one that was salty, it was the obese Latina woman that I've talked about on previous videos. So I do think that that woman could have witnessed firsthand, hey, who's this young girl, this young skinny girl or whatever. And also that obese Latina woman, she also admitted that I was pretty, like she said it herself. And she also was the one who would like try to copy my outfits and stuff in the workplace. She was also the one who really liked white guys and black guys. She would always try to flirt with them in the office, but because of her appearance, they would never like look at her. And with the white guy who had hired me, the CFO guy, the reason that I started to think about this was because I was like, wait a minute. So she had no hand in me getting hired. It was just him the whole time. Like, he's the one that like fought for me to work there. He's the one that wanted me to get offered what I was offered as far as the pay. And I never thought anything of it, but he used to try to come to my office all the time and he would just compliment my body. Like he wouldn't compliment my body in an overly sexual way, but he would be like, "Oh, like you look like you've been working out. Have you been doing your hikes lately? Like I can kind of tell," that sort of thing. And then he would talk about how he likes working out and all that. And so I really do believe that my looks probably played a factor in that. And by the way, I'm not trying to say it like, "Oh my God, I'm so perfect and so pretty." I'm not saying it like that at all, but I am saying that since I know the psychology of men, I know that men on average want to hire attractive women to work under them because a lot of men spend their lives being invisible, so they don't really get validation from a beautiful woman or a pretty girl. And so even if a guy doesn't necessarily want to date that woman in the workplace, sometimes guys like to just be surrounded by pretty women at work because it makes him feel important and validated to have all these pretty receptionists working under him and saying, "Hi, Johnny," or "Hi, Scotty," and like, saying hi to him in the office. It makes him feel important. So that is one of my theories. And I really do think that pretty privilege could have helped because in terms of how I looked at the interview, I naturally was dressing kind of like Olivia Pope from Scandal, so that sort of style, like with my makeup done and everything. And I think that because of how I articulate myself, coupled with that, it could have made me come off as more qualified than I actually was, or it could have like helped other people to like put their trust in me. And so I'm talking about this because pretty privilege has uses outside of just the male gaze. So yes, the male gaze technically helped me when it came to getting those jobs, but it helped me in more of an indirect way as opposed to I'm just trying to go on these dates and all that crap. Like a lot of women, they're not good at social climbing. Like stop thinking of pretty privilege as it only works when it comes to dating. No, it can help you to appear more professional. It can help people to appreciate the nuances of your skills. So it's like if you are so detail oriented that you know how to slay your eyeshadow or like blend your foundation perfectly, or you know how to do a nice hairstyle or a nice manicure, people do notice those small details. And another thing that happened to me at that job with the obese Latina who was gunning for me from day one, like she literally, I'm not kidding, she tried to give me quizzes. Like she would spend time in her office instead of working, she would be typing up quizzes asking me questions about like different aspects of finance, different aspects of accounting, like the liability accounts and all that. Like she would be writing up quizzes and trying to grade me because she was attempting to like kind of sabotage me or make me look bad. But I remember she kept doing this and I finally was like, "Why are you doing this? Like, why do you keep quizzing me? Like, do you want me here or like what's the issue? Do you think I don't know enough or something?" And she was like, "Oh no, I'm just quizzing you because, whenever you move up, like you would want to know this information." But I guess her assuming that I was going to get promoted when I was barely even able to be, I mean, I was lucky to even be in that job in the first place. I was lucky to have landed my second staff accounting job with no degree after quitting the first one within 6 months or within about 7 months. Her automatically assuming that I was going to then try to gun for a promotion, I thought that was insane. I mean, I thought that she was putting me on way too high of some sort of pedestal because I was thinking, I'm half your age, I have half your experience, why wouldn't you get the promotion? Like, why wouldn't you be able to get promoted to like a higher level finance manager? Like, why are you looking at me or kind of threatened by me almost and threatened by my upward mobility or what you think is going to be my upward mobility? So I've noticed that when it comes to pretty privilege, people have this subconscious belief that beauty equals upward mobility. So it could be socially, it could be economically, because I've noticed that I've been accused of being a clout chaser, a social climber, which technically I am, but I've noticed that sometimes people think that I'm trying to like go higher or like go to these promotions and stuff when I'm really not. Because when it comes to 9 to 5 jobs, I didn't care about them, hence why I would quit them so quickly. But the fact that she was associating me with trying to get promoted and trying to level up to the point where she didn't even want me to talk to anybody. She didn't want me to talk to people in the office. She would literally yell at me from across the hallway if she heard me talking with one of the other finance people, or like if one of the CFO guys came in there, then she would literally yell my name from across the office because she didn't want me to have networking opportunities. I have also been told at certain jobs, and I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to this, when you're at kind of a lower paying job where people have this mindset of, what are you doing here? Like, why are you working here? Why don't you have a better job? Can't you get a better job than this? And people stereotype you because of your appearance, because you have pretty privilege. So they assume you could be making more than $20 an hour. You could make more than $15 an hour. What are you doing here? And it's because on a subconscious level, people, they associate pretty privilege with, higher wealth, higher status, a quicker way of like getting promoted. And sometimes at certain jobs, they will even try to recruit you. So I remember at one of the accounting jobs, they tried to recruit me to like do speeches. Like, you know how the HR people, when you first get hired, they have these people who tell you like this is what the job is like. They wanted me to do a presentation that has nothing to do with accounting. It had absolutely nothing to do with accounting, but I was getting recruited and pulled over to another department because they assumed that I had like all these special talents and gifts and stuff. But it's like I hadn't even proved myself. I was literally just sitting there doing accounting. So technically, they didn't know if I had any skills with teaching people about random stuff that has nothing to do with accounting. They projected those positive qualities onto me because of the way that I carried myself. And like I said, there are different types of pretty privilege. So when I was in the workplace, I didn't use like sexy pretty privilege. I was using more of a professional pretty privilege. So like wearing cute little suits, wearing a nice, kind of more modest, obviously professional clothing. But I did notice though that people stereotype me as kind of like being smarter than I actually was, being more upwardly mobile in the workplace than I actually was. So much so to the point where I felt like people were pushing extra work onto me or trying to like put me in all these different hats or put all these different hats on me because they assumed that I could do it. They assumed that I could handle it. So I think there are positive and negative sides to it, but I also think that pretty privilege and professionalism coupled together, those things can help you to build opportunities for yourself. And also, I forgot to mention that before I got that accounting job, when I first started applying for finance and accounting, I got 4 job offers. And this was after I did like an in-person interview or like on the camera interview. So I got 4 job offers and I did not, I repeat, I did not have the qualifications or the skills to do those jobs. Or at least I didn't have like the degree or like as many years of experience. How many people do you know of that only had maybe 1 to 2 years of experience as an accountant and then they can just work at a big ass company? No, that's not normal. And also in 3 out of the 4 jobs that I got hired for, the hiring managers were men. So one was the white guy, one was a black guy before, and then another time it was an Asian guy. So that's a pattern. Like, why is it that I'm more likely to get hired if the hiring manager is male versus if it's a woman? I've noticed that sometimes if it's a woman, depending on her personality, she may not want me to work there because sometimes women, they don't like seeing kind of young, ambitious, the whole rivalry, jealousy thing. But I do think that pretty privilege is a real thing. And I think that if you know how to use your pretty privilege in the right way to where you make it kind of like this professional version of pretty privilege, then I do think that it can help you to level up in the workplace. Also, the way that I speak on this YouTube channel, because I'm kind of more assertive in my tone on this YouTube, the way that I speak on here is not necessarily the way that I used to speak at work. When I was at work, I would speak a little bit more slowly, especially when I was talking to women, because I noticed if I talk to women with this assertive tone, and then coupled with how I look, sometimes other women have stereotyped me as being a bitch, because if you have pretty privilege and you're also assertive, women have tended to stereotype me as being bitchy. By the way, I'm not saying that I've never been bitchy before. I mean, I think I can be, but that's another thing too. Sometimes people associate other qualities with your personality that may not be there, or people assign competence to you that you don't have. Like, that's something that's happened to me multiple times where people thought that I would be extra good at something, or they thought that I would be competent at something when I really wasn't. And like I said, I'm not trying to brag at all. I definitely don't think like I'm the prettiest person in the world. No, I'm just saying that I did carry myself in a professional way and I had pretty clothes and makeup and did my hair and all that. So I do think that pretty privilege works in the workplace. As long as you're dealing with a non-jealous woman or a man who is probably attracted to you, or he's giving you the halo effect. He's giving you pretty privilege. But what do you ladies think? Has pretty privilege ever helped you in the job market? Has it helped you to switch careers and switch jobs more easily? Has it helped you to not really have as many qualifications, but then people are willing to teach you because they like your personality without even knowing you after only one interview for 30 minutes? What do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.